The Rockpile Report.
Buffalo, New York is going to be the epicenter of every stargazing nerd's wet dream.
With Buffalo Bills season ticket holder, Drew Geter.
If there was ever a time to break out Skyline Chili, it's when the Bills are 5-2, right?
The Rockpile Report. The pettiest, hardest drinking Bills podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Rockpile Report podcast. I am your host, Bill's season ticket holder, Drew Geer, and that's my producer, Chris Kruger. And guys, it's a raw day. It's been a week, huh? It doesn't even feel like 72 hours. It feels like it was already a week ago, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Have we... is that a human thing? I think it's part of the human condition. When something happens, you do one of two things. You either wallow in it as if it is still happening to you days later, or you divorce yourself from it completely. And it almost seems like that didn't happen. That was somebody else. Oh, that didn't happen. This terrible thing that happened, it couldn't have been me. That thing that happened. It's like when I'm having a fight with my wife. This is she hates it when I do this, and I can't help it because it's about the theory of relativity, right?
Was it talking about when you grab her?
No, God, no. Listen, she would jack me up. There's none of that in my house. What I will say is,
when I say grab, I mean the way you probably grab Jack, under the armpit.
See, I don't do that either.
Same way.
I'm not a goon hander.
Please.
It's called the goon hand, and Bobby Kelly actually was the one who coined that phrase, the goon hand. And honestly, I don't do that mostly because because here's the problem. What that teaches my kid is that it's okay to resort to that kind of a thing when he's mad at his brother or someone else is doing something that he perceives as you've made me angry and I'm going to put my hands on you. Can't have that. Because ultimately, I don't want the fist fights in my house because it's a lot of drywall repair. Also, it's not good because then I got to have meetings at school. I don't want to do any of that. No. When I'm having a fight with my wife, and we'll be going back and forth, and I look at her and I'll go, "We've been standing here talking about this for a half hour." She goes, "It's been 8 minutes." I go, "Well, it feels like it. It feels like I've been here for 2.5 hours. You're sucking the life out of me." Shocker, Chris, that doesn't usually make the fights better.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't usually help things. So it is kind of like this for people, though. You go through something, and how long you're willing to lay there and just wallow in it is completely dependent on where your head's at, and how you emote about it depends on, I don't know. It's all perception.
I stay away from sports talk. I'm not listening to the Herd.
Oh, you have to.
I'm not listening to GR.
Nope.
Although I did check, GR finally got on YouTube.
Yeah.
You can go watch Joe and Jeremy and Shope and the Bulldog if you want to.
Dude, they all have faces for radio. They're like me. In fact, they might be worse.
I saw some of it today. Nate is in for Mike Shope.
No.
He was dressed. I don't even know what they're called. The people that you give your receipt to on the first hole to show that you paid for golf. That's what he looked like.
Yeah, I think there's a learning curve, right, to being on camera. Hey, I'm going to put myself on camera. Hey, guys, don't dress like shit. That's step one. Meanwhile, Chris has been putting product in his hair since before we even had cameras in the studio. I think he thought it would make him sound more confident.
Yeah, well, it's also habit. I've been doing it for so long. You just do it, even though if, back in the day at the South Buffalo apartment, you come home from work working in a machine shop and you have none of that done at work because you work in a humid-like environment and there's no need for that. And then you just come home and you do it just because that's what you're used to doing.
Yeah, that's true if it's part of your process. And part of my process, to your point, is ignoring sports talk, and I think it helps. I think divorcing yourself from the things that upset you sometimes isn't a bad idea, unless it's your wife, in which case it still might not be a bad idea.
Part of your process
Chris?
is
Chris?
Yeah, part of your process is also telling me that I think this is the end of the show.
Oh yeah,
like
these are drunk.
We're gonna stop doing this.
That's why I do love the podcast and love that we have Twitter, because I get to sober up and then go back like 2 days later and go, "Hey, why'd we lose 40 Twitter followers?" Oh yeah, the stuff. Oh yeah, the things. And I go, well, that's weird because I'm in a completely different place now. But those 40 people, they'll never know it. They'll never know that it's like, all right, I sobered up. Had a day to think about it, decided not to wallow in it. Now I want to try to talk about it. That's the beauty of this thing. I love this because it literally is a vehicle that allows me to better enjoy the game, because I know that when I have these rabid thoughts, like the thing you see on Twitter is exactly who I am in that moment. And then the thing you hear here on the podcast is also exactly who I am in that moment. And what takes place in between is exactly what I think should happen after a game like we just watched. Guys, this is our AFC Championship game recap. Chiefs 32, Bills 29. Your stats of the game. I've got a Josh Allen 22 of 34 for 237, 2 tutties, 2 sacks, a 104 passer rating. Patrick Mahomes 18 of 26, 245, 1 tutty, 2 sacks, 111.9 rating. Patrick Mahomes actually outrushed Josh Allen. 2 rushing touchdowns. He had 4 more rushing yards. If I had told you, Chris, if I had made a Seagram's bet with you that Patrick Mahomes would be the more effective running quarterback in this game, would you have wagered it with me?
Yeah, I would have been Josh Allen all day with that one.
Running back James Cook, 6.5 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns on just 13 attempts. The pressure count, Kansas City, 28 individual pressures earned, 18 quarterback hurries. The Buffalo Bills, 14 pressures, 7 hurries. Third down conversions, Buffalo, 5 of 14 for 35%. Kansas City, 5 of 9 for 55%. And then, Chris, quick hits by the numbers. The number 4?
James Cook.
No, it's the number of times the Buffalo Bills fumbled the football. Luckily, they didn't lose any of them. But that's the number of times the Bills players put it on the grass in uncharacteristic fashion. 47, Chris.
Benford.
No, that's the number of times Kyer Elam fell on his ass or did something that made me swear out loud in front of someone else's children. Or at least that's what it felt like to me in the moment. 24.
Isn't that what Kyer Elam used to be? Number 24?
It's the number of beers that Spencer Brown had to drink by himself after this game. And it's the number of beers that I kind of feel like drinking tonight. And then 3,578.
I have no idea.
That is the number of things that I would rather do with my time than rewatch and try to quote unquote analyze the X's and O's of that fucking football game. I could write you an entire novel about all the things I would rather do than put any of that back into my eyeballs. Luckily, there are people much smarter than us who do it for us, and even they hate it. Yeah, Eric Turner, Cover One, tweets out, I'm going back to do, he goes, it's film review day. I go back, I started, he goes, on the very first play of the Chiefs' first drive, they run motion across the formation, and no Bills defender picks it up. You know that this is a defense that will stress you both laterally and vertically. And yet nobody takes the crosser. So it's an easy pitch and catch. And he pauses it and goes, do I really want to do this today? Even the guys who make their bones on this, Chris, didn't want to do it. Do you think I want to be sitting here talking about this game?
No.
But we're obligated. Do you know why?
Because we have a contract with Blue Wire.
No, because we would have done a show tonight anyway.
Yes.
It's because it's what we do. It's part of the healing process. It's part of how you climb out of hell, right?
Yeah, this is therapy for some people. Listening to you talk about this game somehow is therapy to people.
And I, like a lot of the people who are listening to this right now, got my hopes up that this time around it was going to be different. That this time the Bills would find a way to get over the hump, and that all the positivity of the week and the lack of the looseness in the locker room and all these things was because they finally had a plan. They had what they felt like was a bulletproof plan to take down the Chiefs at home. And from the start of the game, it was almost painfully apparent that was not going to be the case. Now, before we started recording, I asked you a question, Chris, and I want again, now that you've had time to mull on it. At any point in that game, including the moment that the Buffalo Bills took the lead, what was that? If you want to scroll up to the third quarter, I believe, late third or early fourth.
Yeah.
Did you feel like we had things under control at any point?
No. Even taking the lead at whatever. I've got the play-by-play up from Pro Football Reference. Even taking it was the James Cook touchdown where we took the lead.
Mm-hmm.
Not comfortable because you can't trust McDermott in those situations. Things get flustered, game's closed, quarter to go. I can't trust McDermott in those situations, especially against Andy Reid.
So I think that one of the things that you look at that comes out of this game, and I think this is why it was the most frustrating game, and that some of the hyperbole that followed from myself, from others, from the people who are screaming for Sean McDermott's head today, who I think are, as we're going to talk about in tonight's live show, I think even it's bad that I'm the person who's trying to plead for sanity, right? I shouldn't be the Lorax for hey guys, let's take it easy. That's not who I am. That's not who I've ever been. And so that tells you just how just inflamed the fan base is and how activated those, the lunatic fringe that I have come to know and love of this fan base is over the outcome of this football game. I think that one of the problems that we ran into is that all of the things that we watched over the course of 4 quarters for this football team were things that we knew were problems. And all season long, we had just been making it work. In a handful of spots, we showed our ass. The Houston game, the Baltimore game. And that's where you found the warts of our football team. And you could point at things and go, oh, okay, you can't have a rookie safety back there. Cole Bishop got exposed badly on that first Chiefs drive. Just a rough play.
Yeah.
He's young. Same thing. You go back to the Houston game and you go, oh God, rookie safety. This all makes a lot of sense. As it should. The just being able to be flummoxed by an opposing defense on offense and the pressure that we were allowing. You had thought you had fixed that. The fumbling issues, the ball security issues. I saw a tweet. Someone was like, hey, I think Mario Granada from #sports tweeted at us and was like, hey, don't tell Drew about that, because someone made the comment that hand size gets balked at as part of a combine stat, but Josh Allen took that fumble off the ground with one hand.
That's from Bruce Nolan.
Yeah. So all of the things, right? So you've got your ball security became a problem. The wide receivers struggling to separate. That's a thing that's been a part of this offense all season long. It's one of the reasons that if you were digging into the metrics, guys like Ben Baldwin on Twitter, who put out these analytical charts every week, and one of them right before the end of the season was talking about EPA per passing play compared to average wide receiver separation. And they thought it was hilarious that you had the Baltimore Ravens on one opposite end of the spectrum. Here's Lamar Jackson way over here throwing to wide receivers who are schemed wide open. They are wide open a lot of the time. And his EPA per play is around like the median mark. He's just got the most separation and he's kind of quietly ahead of everybody else. And then you have Josh Allen over here who's getting no separation help and his EPA per passing play is to the moon. This was a problem all season long. It was something that you knew was going to be a problem when you looked at the makeup of the roster and just what that position group was. And yet we had made hay with it all season because our coordinator was able to do a job fooling the opposing defensive coordinators, the defensive players, creating conflict and creating natural separation that the players can't get for themselves via scheme. That evaporated.
Yeah.
I mean, there was multiple moments in that game, right? Also, there was no Najee Johnson. I glossed over the return of Jalen Watson to this team and what it meant as an outside corner. Not having a Najee Johnson to pick on in this game like we did last game. Like I think Amari Cooper's 2 biggest catches of the day came against him. He had a couple big passes that he let up late. And they immediately sent him back to the bench when Jalen Watson was ready, just in time for the playoffs. And it played a giant role in their ability to just completely flummox everything we were trying to do from a passing perspective.
Was that done like Nikita Kucherov with the Lightning in the playoffs?
Kind of.
But I wouldn't know if there's
no cap implication.
Okay.
No.
So it's not like the NHL where there's no cap in the playoffs.
No, I think they just wanted him as healthy as possible so that he could come back when it mattered and help the team. With an understanding that they were going to make the playoffs and nothing else mattered. There was no one for us to pick on, so they clamped down on our wide receivers and tightened so many of the windows that we were trying to throw into. The only wide receiver on our team who qualified for next-gen stats like separation metrics because he had 5 targets was Khalil Shakir, and he was in like the bottom half of wide receivers this weekend.
I would have thought you were going to say Matt Collins because that guy fucking showed up.
Well, he showed up, but he only got targeted a handful of times because he couldn't get open. And yes, there was a lot of clutching and grabbing going on. That play where Josh points it out. He's like, look, he's being held. And then throws just a deep shot, a prayer to Coleman. But during all these series, my father-in-law is yelling like, Allen needs to throw the ball. And I'm trying to explain to him, Larry, there's nowhere for him to go. He's standing in the pocket. If he throws the ball, he's like, oh, well, he's got to know to throw it away. He's not going to take an intentional grounding. And there's nobody open. This was the flavor of the day. What I also think is frustrating, right? All of the talk about the fact that what was going to get us over the hump was the rushing attack and how our rushing attack balanced out the days where the passing game just didn't have it. You gave your lead running back, who was averaging over 6 yards a carry, 13 touches. I think that that's, again, something that you didn't think was going to be a problem. And they found a way to exacerbate the problem. They made it one.
Didn't he get hurt, though?
James Cook?
Yeah.
I'm sure. But also, then you turned around and gave what? I'm looking at the target spread, or the rushing spread. You gave Ray Davis 2 carries. You gave Ty Johnson 6 carries, and 3 of them were some of the most ill-advised plays. Like a long developing draw up the middle of the field. Like you can't run headfirst into a Chris Jones defensive line with that. It was just over. The offensive line couldn't protect Josh. All of a sudden, we were hemorrhaging pressures that we hadn't been allowing in weeks. And like there's Sam Schwarzenstein, which is a hell of a name. He runs an analytics website, and he tweeted out, our defensive alert model did not pick up the blitz because it's tuned to replicate a quarterback center's brain. For a corner blitz, you typically have to have your safety topped, which would make it an in-structure blitz. And instead, they found an entirely different scheme to create pressure on that 4th down play where they left Kincaid wide open. He just didn't make the play. They were willing to gamble that Dalton Kincaid would fuck that up or wouldn't be able to get downfield fast enough before their exotic pass rush got home. And some of the linemen admitted after the fact that on that play, on fourth down, they'd never, none of their film study, nothing. They'd never seen that formation before. They definitely didn't see the blitz out of that formation before.
There's my banged up Bills.
Yep.
As we watched with Kyle was over at your house. James Cook got injured at the top of the fourth quarter.
Yep.
And if you look at this, the final drive.
Yep.
All passes.
Yep.
You're a field goal to tie, touchdown to win, 3:33 left. You would assume with that amount of time left, you would run the ball. And I feel like McDermott is like one of those, because this happened to me in my 20s, when you date somebody and then you get cheated on, and then you carry that into your next relationship. Was Moss or Singletary like fumble in their first game ever as a Bill?
That's interesting.
Somebody fact check me on that, because I feel like James Cook being out, Ty Johnson's in the passing game more than he is running. So your next go-to is a rookie. And I feel like McDermott was just jaded because I think Moss or Singletary fumbled once as a rookie. So he brought that energy to Ray Davis. And that's why you didn't see Buffalo run the ball in that final drive. Because run the ball? We're the only team to have 30 passing touchdowns and 30 rushing touchdowns all season. Just give the ball to the rookie. Trust your rookie. Do that.
Look, we were the epitome of balance. We were Thanos. Devastating and balanced. And when it mattered, under pressure, all of the warts and all of the problems and all the things that had been an issue all year long rose right to the surface. And the Chiefs came into this game knowing how to put us into those conflicts and basically dared us to give them something, to basically rise to the occasion. They said, look, all of these things, we have the recipe. We have the recipe on how to exacerbate every wart on your roster. And they did it for 4 quarters. And it's crazy because for a game where you felt like you were never in control, and a game where you were just riddled with anxiety from start to finish, you lost by 3 points. So on the score, this is like the opposite of some games where you felt like you were doing good and then you lose by 12 or 14 and you go, fuck, we were right there. I don't understand. I don't know how it got away from me. This is the opposite where you go, how the hell was it a 3-point game? Because it didn't feel that way. And that's what it is. And yes, obviously the officiating doesn't help, right? Is it refreshing to you that the entire world has come out like in favor of this? Like the concept that everyone who plays the Chiefs gets screwed?
Yeah, but for me, everybody's looking at the fourth down push from Allen.
Shouldn't have been necessary. The third down catch was a first down.
The third down to Kincaid was a first down. That's
almost more embarrassing.
Should have challenged to begin with. But, we were watching the game live. I see that the initial calls overturned on downs. That play of a QB sneak running back up the gut, 4th and 1. Somebody let us know in the comments, when have you ever seen that play get overturned? McDermott should have challenged the Dalton Kincaid third down catch because that was clearly a first down.
What he should have done was had a contract taken out and had one of those guys whacked is what he should have done after the game.
You know what you do to fix this next year? This is how you get by the Chiefs.
We hang on. Whoa.
I got it.
We pull a Celtic pride and we kidnap Sean Hockley.
That is a smart idea. I was going to say next year when we play the Chiefs, we just play backups so we don't put anything on tape for Andy Reid.
I'm not going to lie. I did angrily yell this inside my house to everyone who was watching with me. But my thing was, I think one of the biggest detriments to the Buffalo Bills is the fact that we do play the Kansas City Chiefs in the regular season every year. We play them every single season by default. And because of that, like, Chris, how does that work? Why do we always draw them and we don't get the season where it's like I don't understand. How do we have to play them just as part of the formula?
All right. I know you're dumb and you don't know how scheduling works.
No.
I'll break it down. This is how scheduling works. If you wonder, if you're watching this or listening to this and you don't know how scheduling works, here it is. Your division twice. 6 games right there. Miami, New England, and the Jets. Then you play a division within your conference.
Sure.
So, okay, there's 4. So now we're up to 10 games. Play a division in the opposing conference. There's 14 games. Now, under the old rules of a 16-game schedule, you have 2 games left. Those 2 games are against the teams not in the division that you're already playing for the season that you also placed with. So we won the division. The Chiefs won the division. We're playing them. Houston won the division. We're going to play them next year. Baltimore won the division. We're playing them next year. That's how that works. And then with the added game from the NFC, it rotates through just like with you play one conference in the NFC. So one of the other 3 conferences, you're also going to play a team that you placed with. That's why we're playing the Eagles next year. Eagles won the NFC East. We won the AFC East. That's how that works. So as long as Josh Allen wins the AFC East, Patrick Mahomes is winning the AFC West, we will play the Chiefs every single season. You're welcome.
And doing that in the regular season seems to be one of the bigger detriments to the Buffalo Bills, because all it does is give us an opportunity. It's always placed at a time in the season. It's never early. It's always midway, late in the season, and on its face, it always seems like a good thing. Like, oh, hey, the Bills are hitting their stride, and they're this and they're that, and and this game is now important because conference seating's involved. And the problem is that we empty the clip in these games against them and then try to play them later, and they have a completely different game plan. I mean, I will say, I think that's the most disappointing thing to come out of this, is that for a team, you want to talk about them exacerbating our existing warts, for a team that is always good in terms of film study and in terms of knowing an opponent's tendencies and trying to use it against them, this team came out with 2 brand new playbooks for the game, where at least a dozen of the plays that they ran were things that the Buffalo Bills had never seen on tape before.
Since we've had Allen versus Mahomes, regular season games have always been in October, November, or December, as you can see here.
Yeah.
So what would be fun if they win the Super Bowl this year, just fire it out week 1. We'll go, I don't think we go to Kansas City this year. I think Kansas City comes to us. So maybe week 2, do Buffalo, Kansas City, get that out of the way immediately.
It's just interesting. Like, again, they forced all of the things that we tend to be good at. They forced them to become an issue, and it exploded in our faces. And now our season's over in just heartbreaking fashion. And it's all over but the crying, you know? So with that, I'm going to bust out a little bit of the Wyoming whiskey here.
Yeah,
it's a nice title for the podcast, I think.
Bob Sullivan, he DM'd us and was like, you guys coming to Kansas City? Because we're going. It's like, oh, we got families, but we'd be there with you if we could. He's coming back next year, he said, from Wyoming. That's insane that somebody not being from Buffalo or having any ties to Buffalo becoming a Bills fan because Josh Allen went to his college.
So, first of all, cheers.
Cheers.
We made it. Now, we're going to get to the hero and zero in a second, because I actually want to start with our final thoughts. There was a tweet by Bill's Helmet Bar, a callback to something I had tweeted out last February. after the Buffalo Bills had missed the Super Bowl and once again lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. And it was in reference to a tweet from Blake just about the idea. Well, actually, it was Greg tweeting out, on a scale of 1 to drunk, how's everyone doing tonight? And there's Bill's helmet bar. He goes, every year, the night before the Super Bowl, he watches the Four Falls of Buffalo. And he took a picture of himself wearing his 90s throwback Buffalo Bills sweatshirt. And, he said, parents raising me as a Bills fan. Cons, pain and more pain. The pros, really cool 90s sweaters. Because I don't know which outweighs which. And I hit him with, I go, guys, pros. Being a fan of this football team, first of all, you wouldn't still be here if you were weak. If you think about that. Remember all those years ago when that Bengals fan sold his fandom on eBay?
No.
ESPN brought him in for a segment because he just couldn't take it anymore. This is obviously pre-Joe Burrow. And he sold his fandom on eBay, and it was purchased by some Steelers fans. And then there was pictures of him, and like they did an interview with him all decked out in his Steelers gear at a Steelers game. The thing about being a Bills fan is that not only will you never be that guy, but also it makes you bulletproof in a whole bunch of other facets of your life. Because if you couldn't learn to digest trauma and digest disappointment and digest animosity, rage, vent it all, and just move past it, none of us would have made it this far. We'd all be living in a van down by the river like Matt Foley. Said the cons, our livers have taken more wear and tear than any other joint or organ I think that anybody has. And Blake brought that tweet back from a year ago, yesterday, and said, I think about this tweet from Drew pretty often. Being a Bills fan has made me and likely many a Bills Mafia stronger and more resilient because of the bad times. Our lives are sure like, he goes, our livers are likely toast, but we're better people because of this football team. It is good to romanticize certain things that way. Now, there's a tweet from me circulating out there. In fact, there's a bunch of them that I want to address because I was, like Chris, as our Twitter follower count can attest to, there was a whole bunch of things that Drew got on the Twitter machine and said that upset a lot of people. One of them was me talking about my son. 4 years old. Here I am. People are like still in my house, kind of hanging around, drinking, just, and I go up to his room because my wife's like, he's inconsolable. Can you go up there? And so I go upstairs and he's just sitting on his bedroom floor with half his pajamas on, shirtless, crying. And a part of me was like, kid, I've been here. Don't worry. This actually gets easier. You just throw a little whiskey in the mix. You can find your way to this place pretty quickly. Devastated because Josh Allen's not going to be in the Super Bowl. I don't get to watch Josh Allen play football anymore. Heartbroken. And I had to explain to him, kid, he's coming back. It'll be fine. Yes, it will feel like forever, but you'll be fine. You're 4. This will fly by. You'll get distracted by something shiny and none of this will matter until the next time you see dad busting out the Bills decorations and talking about preseason and it'll be a thing. And I got him calmed down and I got him put in bed, but I tweeted out about it. It was a Circling the Wagons podcast tweet about how it's just the suffering builds character wheel. And I said, this coaching staff and ownership combo, I'm going to do what my dad couldn't and I'm going to break the chain. I'm not encouraging this in my house anymore. It won't benefit him and that's my job. I did tweet that out. And you know what? I still don't regret it. I think that there's something about me wanting to teach him things about this is how you manage suffering. But if it's not good for him, I want to be the thing that steps in front of that. And I'll make myself the buffer. And if I have to tone down the way I push and celebrate this football team around him in order to accomplish that, then so be it. I'm not ashamed of that because I think I've learned some things, right? And I think that really did help pull me out of this. Like, Chris, what time did you leave? I don't even remember it.
I left just after 10:30 because I got home at like 10:55.
Where was I when you left?
So you, me, and Iman were in the basement because your kids were going to bed, and then I asked, because Iman was parked behind me, I asked Iman for his keys. He said it was in his jacket. I moved his fuck Nissan keys, first of all. So I moved.
I do remember this now that you're saying.
I moved Iman's Nissan and then moved it behind you, and then I left. I didn't go back downstairs. I'm Irish goodbye. I'm not going to put Iman's keys back in his jacket and then come back downstairs and goes, bye. It was great hanging out with everyone. I'll probably see you a couple times over the off season. We'll get together for a podcast and a cook over the summer. Drew, this was fun. Thanks for being such a great house host. No, fuck you. I'm out.
Yeah, no, I felt the same way about myself. That's why we were in the basement. It wasn't as bad as it's been. And I don't know if it was the act of consoling my child that pulled me out of my own bullshit, but there was no wallowing after this one. And I think
I'm going to tell you right now that it didn't. I'm pulling up.
Oh, no, I did text Chris. What time was that?
I think you text me. I think
it had to be like 1 o'clock in the morning.
No, it was way later than that. I'm thinking 3 o'clock in the morning.
Well,
yeah, Monday, 3:03 a.m. I need a picture of McDermott's stupid face at the podium as the tile. Legitimately might also call the show quits this week. Gonna drink a little more and then sober up and ruminate on it. And then I sent him a text message at 9:30 in the morning of what is the thumbnail for our live show tonight.
Yep. See, guys, and this is why I like this, because I was genuinely upset. And here's why. In the moment, like, I'm a hostile individual. And if you throw alcohol on top of that and a Bills loss to this degree, we all have our grieving process. Mine was somewhat disrupted. I mean, Chris, if we want to go back through the history of this, some people like Mark Smith will still, I think he's forever scarred by it. Him and Doug Orlowski will forever remember the 2019 loss to the Houston Texans and the epic meltdown that I had afterwards.
Yeah.
There was a lot of broken wicker furniture, me drunkenly doing basically the curly shuffle out in my driveway in the snow. It was a dark day. Dark day. In 2020, when we got bullied by the Chiefs and bounced out of the playoffs, I remember I resurrected Four Loko. Yeah, brought Four Loko back into my life because, you know, that's what you need as an adult in your 30s. Our Cincinnati loss in 2022, that involved me getting into a physical altercation with some away fans that, I mean, something that in the moment's justifiable, but not my proudest moment. Just not. And it's to my shame that it even happened in the first place, but also to hear the story. I mean, it was necessary. But
I don't know why you would think that this show is going to end in the McDermott era off of our fourth loss to the Chiefs, considering we started this show in Rex Ryan's first fucking season.
I know. And this is the beauty of having social media, having a podcast days later after the game ends, and not caring really about how you look to other people through either one of those lenses. Because I can say whatever the hell I want on Twitter and the 5,000 some odd people who follow us. Like, people go, you've been on here for how long and you only have 5,000 people? I go, yeah, because about 40 to 70 of them at a clip, depending on how bad the game goes, will just jump ship. And that's okay. I didn't ask for you. You followed me, not the other way around. Also, this one was different. It was just different in the sense that I guess the screw job and loss felt almost inevitable from the start. There was no point where I was ever confident the Bills were going to win this game, even when they had the lead. And so obviously you're enraged by the officials, and there's a lot of things that make you upset about it. But realistically, you know, I think that this game, the only thing that made it harder to swallow was that I had dragged my child into this with me. And that's where, Chris, that statement of mine comes from. I'm like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this because that means I'm bringing the shit home. I'm tracking it into the house. Is it like, does this have to become a thing that I do? Like this stays out in the garage, like that, like a dog that can't be house trained. Like, is that what my love for the Buffalo Bills is? A dog that can't be house trained. And it's just here. And not only is it going to make my life suck, it's also going to pass it on to the rest of my family. I'd like to believe it won't be. I think that with some sober eyes and maybe a little bit less emotional charge, I think that this is all going to be fine. A lot of you don't. Like a lot of you don't, and a lot of you are blaming Sean McDermott for this loss. Now, for reasons I'm going to get into in tonight's live show, I don't necessarily agree, and I think that it is a problem. You're right to dump anger wherever you want to dump it when you're angry. It's just hopefully when you sober up a little bit and you can look at things again, whether you've been drinking or not, through sober eyes, can you at least be objective? Now, Chris, you just said something interesting. We did start this podcast in 2015. Has the team improved since we started recording the show?
Yes.
Has this team gotten more enjoyable to watch and talk about since we started the show in 2015?
Yes, and I would love to see how some of the shows that started in 2019, 2018 do when you are coached by Rex Ryan and you are the epitome of mediocrity.
I understand the vitriol, guys. And for some of you will listen to this, and I'll get a text at like 3:00 in the morning. It's like, you're a turncoat. Oh, you're an apologist. No, what it is I'm a person who's willing to be objective. I'm willing to sober up and put my rage on the shelf because, yes, I'm disappointed and I'm hurt and I'm mad that things didn't go the way they wanted to here and that the bad guys won again and we let them off the hook and all of the other things that you want to say about the performance of this coaching staff, the performance of the team, the players, the lack of composure, all of it. I understand. I am the vitriol. You all just cosplay as someone who's manic about these things in the moment. You have no idea what it's like to crawl inside my head and have to walk around like this. It's the reason that I'm up at 3:00 in the morning doing dishes and shooting whiskey shirtless in my kitchen because the rest of my family's asleep. I do recall that, right, Chris? I do remember that piece of the night.
Yeah.
I don't remember texting you that until you said it and started reading it. I was like, ooh, I do remember hitting send on that. I like that I used the word ruminate. Do you know what a jackass you are using the term ruminate in a text message to a friend at 3 a.m?
I don't. You did tell me and Iman that you were going to just show up at work on Monday, even though you had the day off. So.
Luckily for
that's what
them,
I would like to know. Did you go to work on Monday?
Luckily for them, some things popped up that I had to go take care of. Otherwise, I was just going to show up and just be a monster. But that's unprofessional, right? Like you're not going to do that. But it would have been. Can you imagine that? Like how funny would it be to just imagine the concept of showing up to work in an office setting and you show up the same way that in Blades of Glory, Will Ferrell came out in that musical on ice costume.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just let it rain down. Guys, yeah, it sucks. And it's a trope, but it's the Marv Levy speech all over again. I'm just going to lay down and bleed for a while. And yeah, this one's going to hurt. And then you will rise and you will fight again. I know because it's Wednesday and I'm already fine. Wednesday and I'm already ready to have objective conversations again. And I'm ready to wade back into the waters. I know some of my corollaries who aren't. I know some people who have legitimately said they're not coming back until after the Super Bowl because they have to get their heads around it. People with much bigger platforms than myself. And I guess that's where being manic sometimes helps. Because you get to just... Chris, I say this with my buddy Neil all the time. Neil is one of my oldest friends. He's a friend of mine from high school he's one of the only friends from high school that I still consistently maintain touch with. He's moved all over the country, and we still talk multiple times a week, sometimes multiple times a day.
Yeah, I know how close you guys are.
What we talk about, linger longer. Hey, Potter, you catch that? So one of the things that he and I talk about all the time is this idea that sometimes being a hard drinking sports fan or just being a hard drinker in general isn't the worst thing in the world, because it allows you, as long as you can keep it under control, to just blow the lines out. Pressure's building up. You got all these problems. What you can do is you can just blow the lines out. And then you take the next day and you piece it together and it's fine. You go find some manual labor to do. You drink a bunch of water. You drink water. You find some manual labor to do. You get some chores done that you've been putting off for a really long time, so you feel like you accomplished something. And I guarantee you feel like a brand new human being afterwards. And all the pressures and all the bullshit that you thought was bothering you in life, you find out that it really wasn't that bad. If anything else, the bills helped this process for me quite often. And so in that way, Sunday night was interesting because I really did confront the idea of like, what are we doing here? Why am I putting myself through this? And the answer is the same as it always was. Because guys, this is fun. Even though it doesn't feel fun right now, it was at some point. It was after the Ravens game. It was when we were pummeling the Jacksonville Jaguars on Monday Night Football. It was when we were dunking all over the Jets a couple weeks ago. Was that not fun?
Yeah.
Guys, this is escapism. The world's full of terrible shit. This is what we do to just preoccupy ourselves with it. And even for as seriously as we take it, as much as it hurts because we've internalized this and we've made this sports team part of our personalities, it's not enough to, I don't know. It's not enough to ruin this thing for me. I will watch football with my son, and he will cry. And he will thrash and he will moan and Marty Bird working for Ohio State. Yes, Chris. Awesome. So, guys, I guess what I'm trying to say is, for everyone who bothers to listen to this podcast, thanks for coming along with me down this fucking, just, again, nobody signed up to be here for this. We came for the vibes. We come for the party. We come for the camaraderie. This team has once again fallen short and handed you grapes, just sour grapes. It's a big shit sandwich. We're all going to take it, like to quote Full Metal Jacket. It's a big shit sandwich and we're all going to take a bite out of it. Or another one of my favorite quotes, Chris. There's only favorite film quotes. There's only 3 types of sun in Kansas. Sunshine, sunflowers, and sons of bitches. and that's where it'll stay. Kansas City, Missouri can kiss my ass. I hope that the script writers, as they always joke about for the NFL, if the Chiefs do go on to win the Super Bowl and Travis Kelce proposes to Taylor Swift on national TV and then announces his retirement and rides off into the sunset, yes, it will. Like, I had this thought. Will it feel like we're watching pro wrestling instead of a professional sport?
Yep.
It is frustrating when you find out that this thing that you love and you've poured yourself and your emotions and your time and your money into, it might actually just be. It might actually just be like, what do they call that, Chris? What was it? It's kayfabe?
Yeah.
I'd hate it. I don't know. What I do know is there's nothing we can do about it now. It's all over but the crying. But I do want to crown the final hero and zero of the 2024 season. I want to start with our hero, and that's running back James Cook.
Don't take it personally, all right? Franchise star players are a lot like Highlanders. There can only be one.
Chris,
I would have gone Mac Hollins.
I would have too if he had caught one more pass. James Cook was the only guy who showed up and did his job with like he had a pulse. Consistently. Every opportunity he got, he made it look like he was like, hey, I'm still here. I'm still plugged in. And for that, I love him to death. The zero of the week, Chris, you know who it is.
You look like death warmed over. Every time I look at you, I lose my fucking appetite.
Cornerback Kaiir Elam, and we got to talk about it. Guys, I don't know that I've met a donkey. Like, this isn't even like Shrek and donkey. This is like I'm trying to think, like, I'm picturing like famous donkeys. There's like the, hey, what's your fat ass doing here from Family Guy? And it's just a big fat mule. Somehow, Kaiir Elam, he's a bigger ass than that, right? Kaiir Elam was atrocious. All of the things, you want to talk about all of the things that were wrong with this football team coming to the surface at one time? Kaiir Elam being allowed on this roster. Chris, that's on, like, his inclusion on this roster. Christian Benford getting hurt. You know, McDermott did point out, like, hey, we lost CB. That was a big blow to what we wanted to do defensively. Oh, you mean like have 11 competent players on the field at one time? Yes, Kaiir Elam's inclusion in this was a direct shot to those hopes. Chris, he put out some of the most unforgivable tape in this game. Remember the one where he just like, it was an easy pitch and catch to a receiver and Kaiir Elam was 8 yards downfield?
Yeah.
He's play. And I made the joke. They asked you to play off coverage, not take the play off. Where did you go? Why aren't you even in frame on TV when that guy's catching the ball? It's incredible, Chris. I think he's gotten worse. I think his rookie season, he actually played well in the few spots they let him.
Yeah, he can't come back.
And he's gotten precipitously worse every single season they let him on the football field. And it's reaching a place where, I mean, we sang his praises one week here because he has one good game every season. And for the rest of his like time, he's just a gross liability. And he puts up some of the most disgusting aggregate statistics I've ever seen. Like, Chris, the big thing on him was supposed to be his man coverage skills. He was the 113th ranked man cover corner in the entire NFL. This guy, like, I don't know that there's a bigger mule to hang like this atrocity on and just go, like, it's too, like, the one thing the Chiefs didn't do to embarrass us, Chris, they could have just leaned right into attacking Kaiir Elam for 4 quarters.
Yeah.
The thing would have been a blowout. The fact that they went away from it is hilarious to me. I love every second of it. Like, I love the fact that they hurt themselves. And everyone talks about, Andy Reid's such a genius. Yeah, genius. Why did you stop attacking Kaiir Elam? You could have run us out of the gym. It's embarrassing. And it just speaks to, once again, we got outplayed by a more cerebral, better equipped football team. They had 2 lockdown corners. We had one corner who doesn't belong in the NFL, and we had another corner who is replacement level at best at this point in his career. Douglas is a nice player, but he's not DJ Reed. He's not Christian Benford. He's not anyone's number 1 corner anymore. Guys, there's a lot of places you can place blame, and you can yell and you can scream and you can whinge about it, but at the end of the day, the sun comes up. You got to deal with it. I've chewed on this. Chris, I've ruminated. I'm such an asshole for using that word. I'm genuinely embarrassed. Let me ruminate on that at 3 a.m. Using SAT words when you're half in the bag after like 1 a.m. I don't know what you do professionally, but it should be like at least under consideration to be a fireable offense.
Yeah.
Like a social credit score, they pull it up, they go, wait a minute. Drew, we were going to give you a raise, but it turns out here you got drunk over the weekend and started texting SAT words to your friends. That's a bad look. You might actually be an idiot. I don't know that we can support this. We're going to move you into the storage locker downstairs like Milton from Office Space. So in our live show this week, we're going to talk all about the things because Sean McDermott said something that incensed everyone when he brought up that we'll learn from this. Hopefully you guys will give it a chance. We're going to go record a show about all the things that the Bills legitimately can learn from the 2024 season. And for those of you who did decide to come check this show out and still have it in you to wallow in this thing the way we do, God bless you. We'll see you on the other side. We'll see you next week. And for tonight, we got to get out of here. I'm Drew Gear. That's Chris Krueger. This has been your Rock Pile Report.